Welcome to the Be Magnetic podcast, where we ignite deep abundance and step into soul-led success without losing joy, freedom, or peace. This is for the woman who is bored, disconnected, and exhausted trying to win a game she doesn't want to play anymore. If your soul is calling for more flow, more ease, more magic, but you're not sure how to get there, get ready to become magnetic and create a life that is as juicy and abundant as you've always dreamed it could be. Welcome back to the Be Magnetic podcast. Today we're going to talk about how to hold the identity death when you're evolving fast. So if you're going through a massive identity death and seem to no longer resonate with anything you once desired, stood for, or loved, well, this episode is perfect for you. By the way, even the next episodes are going to be perfect for you, as we're going to have this full series of just helping you navigate massive life transitions over the next few weeks. So you might want to stick around to the podcast because there's a lot of good stuff coming your way. This episode was actually inspired by something that I felt during my massive life transition over the last couple months, and even just like the even bigger life transition that I went through over the last couple years. While I was going through my pivot year and, becoming 30 and becoming a mom and like all that stuff, especially the first few weeks, days of any of these transitions felt really, really challenging, because I was obviously exiting the old ways of doing things and then, not fully yet in the new things either, and somewhere in between, and that in between, which I often refer to as a deconditioning phase, that taught me so much about myself. And every time, really, again, when I'm going through a massive life transition, it's wild of who I was before and who I was after. And I sometimes think it would be so cool to capture that, but sometimes it's hard, because oftentimes I feel like we personally can't really feel how we are changing, but then when we go through massive life transitions like that, even us, we notice how we are changing. And so it sometimes would be cool to just capture that, right? Capture who you were before and capture who you are after. But anyway, unfortunately, that's not possible. So anyway, for me, going through these massive life transitions always came with an identity death, because obviously my life was changing and so I was changing. And every identity death also comes with a certain deconditioning of what you think to be true about yourself and your life and your business and whatever area is shifting. And so that is what I want to get into today. And my intention really is to help you navigate this identity shift easier, because it is not for the faint of heart. So like I said before, you can't change anything in your life that does not require an identity death either. So there's such a beautiful framework. I don't remember by whom it is, but it's called the Be, Do, Have module. And it actually basically states, be who you are, be who you want to be, or be that thing, do that thing, and then have that thing, right? So for example, you want to make 20K while also only working 20 hours a week, right? So be the version of you that makes 20K a month while also only working 20 hours a week. Then act as that version of yourself, and then you have the 20K months and 20-hour work weeks, basically. And that module in itself already states that we have to be something first before we can have it. And so when something actually arrives, a physical manifestation arrives in our lives through a big shift or something that's happening, or we're evolving really fast, then that is always ultimately tied to an identity death, because who we were can't coexist with the highest timeline that we are stepping towards. And oftentimes, obviously, a big part of the identity shifting has already happened beforehand, because otherwise we couldn't have manifested it. We had already had to become that version of ourselves that is capable of even attracting that thing into our lives. But that often happens unconsciously. Even if we are like very self-aware and we consciously work towards that, it lands different when the actual manifestation is coming through. So if you want to change something in your life, you will have to die the identity death. There is no other way. And that can be sometimes challenging, because on the one hand, you're like so excited about all the good things that are happening and like your manifestations finally coming through. And on the other hand, you're like so sad. But it's okay. I'm here to help you through this. So a big part of navigating the identity death when you're evolving is to like actually create the space to navigate it, to exit. And that is something that I see so little happening actually, and something that I do personally think that actually makes up the quality of our lives is the degree to which we're able to be present in pivotal phases like that. Because oftentimes we brush by big shifts like that. So something massive manifests and we just ignore how we feel. We ignore the sadness, the grief that comes with dying the identity death through this massive evolution, expansion that we're going through. And so we don't fully integrate and we brush by such a monumental period in our lives. And so a big part of actually navigating or holding the identity death when you're evolving fast is to create space for it, to understand, to acknowledge, to accept, to trust that beautiful manifestations can coexist with identity deaths at the same time. And just because you feel sad on the one hand that something old is passing away, you can also be really excited about what's coming into your life. And one example I have there for you is when my stepdaughter got here, like I was so excited for this new chapter in my life, and I was so excited for her to experience all of this. But at the same time, I was so sad because I knew that meant giving up time of my freedom, time for myself. It meant like I couldn't relax so much or the way I used to relax before. And it was really sad. Like even to this day, I say like I would have been so content not having kids as well, because I was so happy with how my life was before. And so even harder was it for me to actually let that go and let go of that version of me that had all this freedom and that had these visions and that maybe put business above everything else because she could, and that was the thing that mattered. That was the thing that mattered to her the most. It was sad to let that version of me go, but I knew I could grieve her while also being so excited for this new version of me to arrive and for this new chapter of my life to finally be here. And a big part of what made that coexisting happening was because I created space, because I consciously set aside time where I could just sit still and sit in my emotions, acknowledge my emotions, be there, look at the bright side of both things, and like all of that. So space is a big part of navigating this identity death. Another big part is to walk yourself through changing the patterns of what you believe to be true about yourself, your life, and what is possible. When you're letting go of an old version of yourself, ultimately that opens up a possibility for you to redefine who you want to be, which I think is something really exciting. And so you get to actually let go of what you believe to be true about yourself, about life, about relationships, about success, about whatever is involved with this expansion of yours. And you get to actually redefine who you want to be, right? So for example, through my period, through my identity death, I got to redefine who I wanted to be as a mom business owner. right? Before I knew who I was as only a business owner, but now I'm a mom and a business owner. So now I get to define what that means to me. But ultimately, what comes along with that as well is to decondition what we think to be possible, right? So I had to, for example, decondition what I thought was true about someone who cared about their family and also cared about business. If you're going through an identity death that's maybe related to income, or then you're maybe what you need to decondition is what you thought to be true about someone who makes the money that you made before versus someone who's making the money that you're now making. Or if you're, for example, shifting your approach to life and business, and you're wanting to create more space for yourself, maybe you need to again decondition what you thought to be true about yourself. And a business owner who is so focused, so fixated on succeeding versus a business owner now that cares about other things outside of business. So there's a lot of deconditioning that we need to be doing, and within that identity death, and we need to really create that space to not only change the patterns, but also, like decondition, change what we believe about life, ourselves, and how the world works, so that we can actually build this new version of ourselves, and we can step to our highest timeline and align with our highest selves, who ultimately knows that what you desire is possible, and what you're manifesting is no fluke, it's no coincidence, it's something that's meant for you. And now it's about training your mind and your body to be able to hold that, to be able to see that what you're moving through is actually totally planned and meant to, and that you can hold that. And I feel like for most people, letting go of the old is really the hardest in everything, because we have so much emotional baggage tied to letting go of the old, and a lot of it is also tied to the work that we put into it, the money that we put into it, the time that we put into it, and maybe and that was actually the case for me as well. Like maybe with this identity death, you also have to grieve some of the dreams that you had that didn't come true, and or didn't flourish in the way that you wanted to. And actually, like, this is like side note, I had this private ceremony for my 30th birthday, and it was so beautiful. And the facilitator, she walked us through a meditation as well, where we were to walk into our garden of what we of the plants that we, the seeds that we sown, and then we can look at all the seeds that grew so beautifully in this last chapter, and then also look at all the seeds that didn't turn out to grow into anything. And with any transition, really, with any identity death, there'll be plants, there'll be seeds that didn't grow, and that is usually the hardest to look at, because we stand in front of these plants and we are so sad because we put so much time, energy, money, intention into making them grow, and they didn't grow. And so a big part of actually allowing and holding that identity death through the evolution is to make room for the grief of what didn't come around, basically, and understand that what you put into it, though, isn't wasted. It served you in different ways. And a big exercise that I love to recommend my clients in cases like this is to actually go and look at what did grow from that seed, though. Maybe it wasn't exactly the plant, but something got nurtured by the water that you gave to that plant. Something grew. Maybe it wasn't that exact plant, but it was something else. So look at that and what good maybe came of it. And the more you can actually let go of that old baggage, the more you can actually make peace with the plants that didn't grow, the easier it'll be for you to move forward and actually start into this new chapter without any like residue energy tied to some old identity of yours. You can really be completely free, becoming who you desire to be. And that is something really, truly beautiful. So that is actually it. It was a rather short episode, but I wanted to take some time to talk about this really important topic, and I hope that sharing my thoughts, my experience, my perspective on this has helped you to navigate your identity death a little bit better. If you feel open, if you want some more emotional support, feel free to DM me on Instagram. My inbox is always open. I love to have space for people. It's literally what I would do if I win, be paid for it as well. So make sure to slide in there and we can have a chat. And then if you're curious on working with me in a deeper capacity, obviously there's opportunities mentioned, linked below in the show notes as well. And I've also added a couple of related episodes that you can dive into over the next couple of weeks. Like I said, some of them are coming out the next couple of weeks, so make sure to keep an eye out for them. And then just always remember that big changes require you to let go of who you once were so you can become whom you are destined to be. All that comes with it. Welcome the grief, welcome the sadness, welcome whatever didn't work out, whatever is sad to let go of, but ultimately also welcome everything, like all the opportunities that come from this massive identity death that you're currently going through. Sending you so much love, and until next time, bye.